to go back to the World Series. That trio consists of the big three, is what I call them. Yeah, you guys, when I mention the big three, you guys always know that it consists of Matt Manning, the Tigers' 2016 first-round pick, also out of high school. I'll get to that later. Alex Faedo, the Tigers' 2017 first-round pick. And, of course, the very famous now, Casey Mize, who was the first overall pick last year in the 2018 draft. These three guys have had outstanding seasons this year, and it's absolutely amazing to watch because all three of them are in Double-A Erie. If you guys don't know, I've been covering Erie for the last month now for my Instagram page. Back to my Instagram page. I'm sorry I keep bringing it up. I promise after this first podcast it won't be brought up nearly as much. But my Instagram page is filled with I believe it's five. Let me check. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 very strong baseball minds. I'm the owner of the account, but the account would not have as much success right now if it weren't for the 5 people. We have somebody that covers the Detroit Tigers at the major league level. We have somebody who lives very close to Toledo and is very closely affiliated with the Toledo Mudhens that covers them. I've been covering the Double-A Erie Seawolves for the most part. We have somebody covering the Lakeland Flying Tigers, and we have somebody that also lives very close to the West Michigan Whitecaps and covers them greatly. Those guys have been absolutely outstanding, and I really can't wait to get back into full gear posting soon. But back to what I was saying earlier. These 3 pitchers, they're projected to be very good MLB players. The 2 that I'm really excited about are Matt Manning and Casey Mize. Alex Faedo is still struggling a little bit in Double-A right now. He kind of struggles with consistency. He gives up home runs sometimes, but he has a really solid slider, and his fastball is getting better, so I'm sure he's going to be able to make it. But Casey Mize and Matt Manning, those 2 pitchers, I think, are in a league of their own. Matt Manning, he has some of the most wicked, pure baseball stuff I've seen in a long time. His curveball, when on, it looks like Justin Verlander's. That's the best comp I can give. I mean, it's just that dominant. And his fastball rides in the mid to high 90s. He can reach 98. He's going to be a good pitcher. His big thing that held him back has always been the control, and he's really figured that out lately. And if his control's fine, I'm sure that he's going to become an absolutely outstanding force in the rotation one day. And as for Casey Mize is just, I don't even know how to. He's amazing. Like, it's very rare that you find a pitcher that can throw mid-90s with a wicked splitter change and have great control. The biggest thing that holds lots of pitchers back in the major leagues is their control. They get behind batters, they walk batters, give free passes. It just leads to a whole bunch of mess. But Casey Mize has some of the best control in all of minor league baseball, if not the best. And when you have plus pitches, like his fastball, like his splitter, which is the best splitter potentially in all of baseball right now, you're going to be a great pitcher, and we've already seen it. I always talk about Double-A being the biggest jump for a pitcher in the minor leagues. Going from High A Lakeland to Double-A Erie is extremely difficult. I've actually been to Joker Marchant Stadium at Lakeland. The dimensions are almost just as big as Comerica Parks. It's 420 to center field with high 300s along the left and right field foul poles. It's tough to hit a home run at Joker Marchant Stadium. So that seems to help pitchers out quite a bit. And, I mean, it could have helped Casey Mize out. It seemed like it was helping Casey Mize out because he was absolutely dominant in his brief time in the Florida State League. So, because of that, the Tigers were able to move him up quite quickly. And all he proceeded to do in Double-A Erie was throw a 9-inning no-hitter in his very first time in Double-A. And like I said earlier, I really believe that high A to Double-A is the toughest transition for a pitcher, because Double-A's dimensions are way shorter than high A's. But yet that didn't stop Mize at all. All he did was come out, throw a no-hitter in his first game, and he's been, quite frankly, dominant since. He's only had 1 or 2 bad games. And those weren't even terrible games either. He's just been an absolute stud down there. And he's on a fast track to the major leagues. I don't think he's going to get there this year, because the Tigers are going to probably try to get a extra year of control on him. But when he comes up next year, he might take the league by storm. But so there's really no problem with the Tigers pitching in the minor leagues. And those are just 3. There's a lot of other guys that are making impacts in the minor leagues. I mean, God, the main guy we got back in the Justin Verlander deal, Franklin Perez, has been injured for most of the entire year. So we haven't even seen the best out of him yet. I totally think that he's going to be able to come back. I mean, he was only 20 years old when the Tigers got him. And it's very rare for a 20-year-old to pitch in Double-A and have success. But he had an ERA right around 2 with the Astros when we got him. Now, the last 2 years have been lost to injury. But the hope is that he can come back and potentially add to the big trio the Tigers have. So yeah, like I said, the pitching is not a problem in the Tigers minor league system. However, the Tigers really don't have many potential impact bats in the minor leagues. That's the one thing holding this rebuild back. That's the one thing that the critics continually bring up and drill into the pessimist mind, is that the Tigers don't have lots of big hitters. And I don't completely agree with them. I don't think the Tigers hitters are that bad, but it definitely is a problem right now. You can't have just a few guys and hope to succeed in a rebuild. So they need some impact bats. They have around 6 or 7, but it's never good to put all their eggs in just a few baskets, especially with minor league baseball players. Look at Ronnie Rodriguez and Duel Lugo. Those are the 2 guys right now that basically sum up, 4A players. So let me define a 4A player for you guys real quick. A 4A player is a guy that's very good in AAA. He rakes in AAA. He looks great. He looks like the next Derek Jeter. But when he comes up to the major leagues, he gets very humbled, to say the least. The Tigers have seen that now both years with Duel Lugo and Ronnie Rodriguez. I mean, the AAA manager, Doug Minkiewicz. AAA manager, Doug Minkiewicz. Yeah, that's a tough name to say. I didn't even know how to say that name I just learned it maybe 2 months ago. It's a monster to try to say. But moving on, Doug Minkiewicz, he said that Ronnie Rodriguez last year was his best hitter in AAA, which, if you look at the stats, it totally seems like it's true. He hit well over 300 with plus power. But when he got to the major leagues, he just looked like he couldn't hit worth a damn. He didn't hit at all. He has a very aggressive swing, and he loves to just hit the cover off the ball. And in AAA, you're able to do that because there's lots of 4A pitchers pitching to him. A 4A player is someone that just does great in AAA, but they just cannot get it going in the major leagues, which, unfortunately, that's what it is with Ronnie Rodriguez. And same with Duel Lugo. He was looking great this year. Not so much last year. He had a rough season last year, both in AAA and the major leagues. But this year, it looked like he finally got it all figured out in AAA. But right when he got called back up to the major leagues, he started to struggle again. And that's gonna that happens with quite a few people. And it's not a bad thing, but it's always a risk when you have just a few prospects. You don't know if they're just going to be 4A players. That's why it's good to have more, like around 10 to 15 guys that you think could potentially be major league hitters, because around 50% of them are going to fade out. they're not going to be great all the time. So, the Tigers have about 7 or 8, maybe 7 to 10 prospects that I think could potentially be Major League bats. Willie Castro, who's in AAA Toledo, Jake Rogers, who's in AAA Toledo, Christian Stewart, who's on the Major League club, Jeimer Candelario, who's been back and forth this year between Major Leagues and AAA, Daz Cameron, an outfielder in AAA, and Isaac Paredes, a infielder in AA. They all seem great. But like I said, Major League Baseball is a whole other ballpark. Players are going to have their ups and downs. And we've seen that firsthand with both Stewart and Candelario this year. Stewart broke on the scene last year. It really was looking like he was going to be a big part of the Tigers' future, and he was going to be a guy to build around. But unfortunately, he kind of hit a wall this season. And it's rough, because prospects like Jeimer Candelario, they very rarely struggle in their time coming up to major leagues. That's what makes them such a high prospect in the first place. But yeah, he basically hit a wall this season. He wasn't hitting for any average at all. He wasn't hitting for power. He wasn't getting on base. He just had rough at bats. But then he went down to AAA and proceeded to hit. I don't know if he hit 1 or 2 grand slams, but he hit numerous home runs down there, numerous doubles, and he just looked like a completely different player. And since he's gotten back, I really do think that he's gotten a lot better. And as for Christian Stewart, he had an injury within the first month of the season. So he went down on the injured list. It looked like he was going to really become a big part of the Tigers team this year. He was hitting for power, which basically nobody in the Tigers lineup has. Even Miguel Cabrera, one of the best right-handed hitters of all time, has seemingly lost his power this year. So it was really looking big that Christian Stewart was going to be the guy to provide some pop in the Tigers lineup. But unfortunately, he went down with an injury. Went through all his rehab assignments, came back to the major leagues, and like Candelario, he just hit that wall. And it was tough for Stewart. His at bats, they were not looking good, but slowly and surely, he was able to grind out better at bats, make better contact, and now balls are starting to fall for him. He's looked way better in his last week or so. And it's really exciting because Christian Stewart is a guy that lots of guys believe that he's going to be a big part of the Tigers' future. And I'm not going to lie, I was getting a little scared for a minute. Like, I didn't know if he was going to be able to fully come back, but he has, and it's been absolutely great. So, moving on, lots of guys are going to have up and downs, and that's why it's really big to make sure that we have numerous people that can come up and potentially hit. While one player is down, they may have a few that are hot, vice versa. So how does this all go back to the selection of Riley Green? Like, I know I went completely off topic for a while, but yeah, there's definitely something that comes back to Riley Green with this whole thing. As I said earlier, Green was drafted out of high school. Some people may ask what the big difference between high school and college is. Well, it's unmeasurable. The level of competition, development, and maturity is substantially bigger in college. The Tigers' first-round pick in 2014 hasn't even gotten above AA ball. I don't want to say his name, but if you follow the Tigers, you definitely know who it is. He's one of the best defenders in the system and steals tons of bases year in and year out. But he simply hasn't been able to translate the bat from high school to the minor leagues. While I absolutely believe that Green is better than that said player, but the moral of the story is that it takes lots of time to develop hitters. Even more so, I would say, than pitchers, because the pitchers are much more advanced in the minor leagues than I guess you could say the hitters are. So it's tough for high school hitters to fully adjust. And I'm really scared that maybe Green will fall into that trap. But I think Green has much higher accolades than that player ever had. People say he's got the tools to become